Welcome, welcome, welcome again to Inspired Voices with Sangwadzi Spiweka Chinzama Pfumo. I'm excited today to have you here, where I invite my guests who are ordinary people who are doing extraordinary work in our communities. And today, our topic is a very important topic, and I know people go around it and we don't really get to talk about it, but we want to break it down. We're talking about love, marriage, and divorce. Let's talk about this. My guest today, welcome to Kano. Welcome to Inspired Voices. I still want to go to Kano. Welcome to Inspired Voices. My guest today is Reverend Shepherd Gwende, who is in Winnipeg here in Canada. And also I have a family lawyer, my friend Cecilia Mzondiwa, who is in Alberta here in Grand Prairie in Alberta. And I also have my dear sister, Mrs. Margaret Chidzonga, who has been married for 46 years to the same man, people, to the same man, and they've got children and grandchildren. And I thought no other than that kind of person to talk to us about her experience in marriages. She is in Zimbabwe. She knows cultural expectations of marriages. And so I wanted to have different voices chime in on this topic. And I'm going to be the facilitator, but I'll be asking questions so that we can talk about this. Welcome to the program, my dear guests.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you. Fantastic. So let's start with a question. We all understand the sanctity of marriage. It has been there time immemorial, right? Our grandparents were married. Let's talk about it maybe the last 50 years because I'm about that age anyway. I know what I knew about marriage from my parents, my grandparents, and I'm sure all of you. And let's just pack it in the last 50 years. Every week we hear, people going to Marora, people getting married. There's a wedding. Everybody's excited about it because it's part of our culture, right? And what I'm talking about here is we're talking about heterosexual marriages. There might be other kind of marriages, but here we are talking of marriages between men and women. So I won't get a kick, a kicking from people that, hey, same-sex marriage. We're not talking about that, and I'm not judging, no judgment. We're just talking about men, women who are married to each other. So, as I said, I gave you a scenario. People are going to have marora and going to my weddings. But every month we're hearing things have fallen apart. What is going on? Maybe I would start by asking Mufundis to talk to us about what you are seeing, because I know when people get married, they always come to their pastors. Most people attend some church of some sort. Some people are married and they don't attend church. They don't go for the counseling, and there is no right or wrong answer to this. I just want us to unpack the whole thing, the whole, marriage package. What, as an institution, where are we in Fundis? Get in and tell us what your experiences are.
Thank you very much. From my perspective, marriage has been viewed in many ways by people, depending on where they come from. But as a minister of the gospel, I have understood marriage to be a covenant, between two people and God. So God being the glue that ties people together. And if it is seen in that light as a covenant, I think that includes aspects like love, aspects like fidelity, and aspects like companionship. So those are things that I think a covenant should consist of. And in my view, marriage needs to be seen in light of these things, working together. And I've realized also that people nowadays, they sometimes choose to just have a marriage ceremony and without the premarital counseling. That usually happens when people get married for convenience. because they want paperwork, because they want something to tie them together, which shows that they're married. But then people end up just getting married without the knowledge of what they are doing. And that has led to a lot of breakdowns in the marriage and a lot of challenges because of the ignorance that comes with rushed decisions like that. So
Okay.
I think I can end there for now. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. You kind of gave us a synopsis of what happens, what marriage is, and what's expected of marriage, right? And there are maybe those other nuances where why people get into it, and the excitement of getting into it. Maybe we'll touch on that later on.
Okay.
I'll go to Cecilia. Cecilia, you're a lawyer, you're a family lawyer. You deal with a lot of these people. When people come to, in actual fact, when people come to your office, it means it's not working anymore, right? Mainly, yeah, because people don't usually come to. They go to Mfundis for counseling and pre-counseling, but to you, when they come there, it means somebody said, "I'm throwing in the towel," right? What are your thoughts? What are you seeing, and what can you tell us about love, marriage, and then the divorce bit of it? Maybe you can give us a synopsis of that.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Auntie Spiwe. Actually, I want to take it from where Mfundisi started. You know, I grew up in a family where both my grandparents, so my grandparents from my mom's side, were together until they all died, right? And even though my grandpa had two women, two wives, polygamous situation, which I would say, oh, no, I wouldn't do that. But they were together for life. And then my grandparents from my father's side, my paternal grandparents, they were also together for life. And then my parents, they were together for 66 years until my dad passed on in 2022. So that example that I saw growing up, made me believe that this is a covenant for life. You're married for life. That's how I was brought up, and then I was raised Catholic, and this is what the Catholic Church taught as well. So practicing law threw me into this whole new area of, oh, okay. And right now, I think globally we are sitting at about 50% of marriages end up in divorce. And as you said, when people come to my office, it's not because, oh, yeah, unless they're buying a house because they just got married, but it's mostly because things are not working well. And so I think that what I can say is that I have seen that whole process of separation and divorce make or break people. I've seen a lot of pain. I've seen a lot of people who have gone into marriage for different reasons, and people who believe that marriage is a unit for different reasons and based on different ways. So it has made me question my beliefs of it should be based on love. We just celebrated Valentine's Day yesterday. And that, like Mfundi said, it's about fidelity, it's about companionship. I would want to add that I think what I've learned and seen is that it's also about forgiveness, because it is the people that you love the most cause you the most pain. It's about compromise, because in order to live together for that long, I think Mama Chizonga will speak to that. It's a give and take. And then I'll also say that it's about sacrifice. And then that it's about work every day. And so people that end up in my office have either given up on the sacrifice or on working on the relationship every day, or cannot forgive anymore, or for other reasons, it's just not working. So it has made me question the whole institution of marriage. Is it still relevant? I'm a Christian reverend, but I have asked, is it still relevant at this time? And there are also a lot of people who tell me, I'm just there because I don't want to lose what I have put together with this person. So I'm like, that whole sacrifice of living a life that is not working for you anymore because of different reasons. So those are my thoughts as I look at this. And I've also questioned things about, like, does love really exist? And perhaps both Reverend and Mama Chizonga will tell me, yeah, it does, because of what I'm exposed to daily. I'm like, I don't know anymore. So that's where I am at, and I will give it back to you, Aunt.
Okay, thanks, Cecilia. And you touched on something where I wanted to go. The marriage, the model, the marriage model. Well, I'd like to go back to where we started, like what you said about your grandparents and even my grandparents and my parents and everybody's parents. That time, that's how it was. And that model was way back. We believe they got married because they needed manpower to have more children, manpower, etc., etc. Right? But things have changed a lot in between. What happened 20 years, 30 years, like I said, let's pack it on 50 years. Things have changed. I mean, look at the internet. Look at that's just it. Now we're moving even from there, we're going to AI now. That's a whole complete world altogether. And maybe we still look at it with the same lens as we did when our parents got married. Uh, is it time to change the model? I don't know. But before we go there, I'm going to ask Mighty Zonga, who has been in it. Mighty Zonga, you lived in Zimbabwe, you went to school, you traveled everywhere, right? Right? And you got married. 46 years is a lifetime. That's long to the same man. It's a long time. Yeah? Tell us, chime in. What are your thoughts on marriage, where it came from, where it's going, and some of your experiences? I know I'm going to have to pack it in.
Yes.
Mhm. What are your thoughts?
Okay. Thank you, Spiwe. My thoughts on this are that um, I can only talk about what I've gone through. I met this man 46 years ago. We were in the UK, fell in love with each other. Then we came home, introduced each other's family, did the traditional thing, got the lobola paid and everything, and we had a wedding. Then we stayed for 5 years without children, but we got to a point where people were discouraging us or telling us all these negative. That would have broken, some marriages. Thank God it didn't break ours. It just made us strong. We we respected each other. We communicated whenever there was a problem of something that needed to be talked about. We we were loyal to each other. So those are the three things I can talk about for the moment. And then our, as we were going by, year after year, it just made us stronger. And as we woke up one day, we are 46 years married. But ups and downs that you get in marriages, some were through our own interaction, and some of it was, from without. Having a lot of pressures from families where they expected us to do certain things. And I must say, from both families, we are the firstborns. So you can imagine what pressures
Yeah.
we have on a day-to-day basis. So this is some of the experiences that impacted on how we were living. Um, as you know, we came back, or maybe we came back at independence. There was a different expectation after the colonial era had ended. So everything seemed to have been easy. So it looked like we're going into these jobs that were once before reserved for whites. As pioneers of this new life, so we navigated through that, rising in our jobs to to higher limits. So that was really a whole new game for most of the blacks who make after independence, and the pressures also were.
There we go. Let's just wait a little bit. She probably come back.
So we were really navigating our lives through all these. So maybe I should stop there, unless you want to ask me particular questions, and then I can.
No, that's fine. No, I think you did well. You did well to explain to us why your situation. I know a lot of people will say, Sangwadzi, you're talking about that. You're talking with these people. Cecilia is in the diaspora and Reverend is in the diaspora. It's different here. That's the reason why I wanted to bring Maichi Dzonga here, because she's lived overseas, but she also understands how our expectations, our cultural expectations of marriages and what it looks like. And thanks, Cici, because that's important. And at this point, I would like to say happy Valentine to you and your husband. I would like to tell you what you used to say when we're in Zimbabwe. When you meet here, Sam Lev is there. Are you guys going? She'll meet my husband. Are you guys going for Valentine's? And then we say, my guru, I don't know about you, but yes, we are still in love. We're going. Always used to say that, and she's still saying that. And Mom Kuru, they're still saying that. And to me, it warms my heart that there are some people who are still married and still give a semblance of a good relationship, to still married to her lover. You know what I'm saying? So it's wonderful to know that, and that's why I asked her to come, because she is not same age group as us. She's our Cici sort of. But her and her husband, let me tell you, I have never seen the hottest thing. You see them at same level wearing red people at Valentine's. So that's fantastic. But again, I want to go back, Mfundisi, to the question that I posed. Do you think, because of the changes, many changes that have happened in our lives, some by design, but mainly by default, things have just evolved, right? Mm-hmm. Do you think the expectations of marriage still holds, or should we relax and see it differently?
Yeah, I think I need to go back to Cecilia's comments when she mentioned something like, is it still relevant? Because I'm sure that's part of what you're asking as well. Is marriage still relevant in this context? Is there anything like love? What is it? Or so I think marriage and love, viewed in contemporary eyes, is still relevant, and it helps us reflect that life that God had designed initially for the universe, or for the couples that live together. Because in my view, marriage mirrors the relationship between God and the church or the people. So when God sent his son, that was love. And in Christianity, we believe that love is actually central to our faith. And because God first loved us and loved the church, we are then commanded to love our wives. And also,
but God had no idea that I was going to get married to a guy who is a drunk. I mean, that piece wasn't there when he was talking of love, because it sounds very as a concept. It's almost like as a concept. But in reality, what is happening right now to make the love not go on for 46, 50 years? What's going on?
Well, I think that's where I'm going there, because I just wanted to establish that love still exists and it is there. but there is brokenness in the world, and we cannot blame God for that.
No.
And that's human frailty, that's human error. And we think that in marriage, since people have decided to handle things differently in marriages now, it's happening that people don't live up to the standard, but the
Why?
standard is still there. And now
Why?
it's because of how people are now living, because I can talk about that in the context of maybe the diaspora where we are now. People, there are many factors that affect marriages here. So some of those things are things like a culture shock. The culture here is very different from the culture back home in Zimbabwe. I am an African, and I believe that wherever I go, I should carry my Africanness. And so that challenge of not being able to adapt to today's society, because we are supposed to move with the times. Like right now, I should not be rigid in the way I view manhood, because the man that I know in Africa is not the man that I become when I come to the diaspora. There are expectations like ordinary house chores, things like that. There's just a lack of love, a lack of understanding, and a rigidity and an affinity to hold on to all those practices that are not friendly in this context. So
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Before I forget, I lose that thread. Yeah, where you're going?
Yeah.
You said when you come here, you come here and you still want to carry your Africanness, right?
Mhm.
And also you give the explanation that when you come here, there are different cultural changes that come because of the domain where you are now is different from.
Yeah.
So if I bring it to say people in the diaspora,
Mhm.
where is it going wrong that love and that then getting married, people go for the marora, they pay lobola and unite the families, then they come here and where is it going wrong? Is it because of people not realizing that there are differences now, there are changes? What's going on?
From my experience, people talking to me, because I've talked to couples having challenges here. So what they tell me is that this man does not want to accept that in the diaspora, we all have to work. We all have to do something. I cannot let my wife go for a shift and then expect her to come and cook again. And yet, where I'm saying I'm the man, I don't cook. I'm not supposed to do the dishes or laundry. I'm not supposed to clean the house, and I'll be lying around the house. And my wife comes from work, she's supposed to do that, not even taking out meat from the freezer. So those are some of the things that men are not adapting to. They still think that I'm supposed to be the man of the house, and that masculinity. They feel that if I do house chores, that diminishes the man that I am. So, which is a challenge in today's marriage. So that is a thing that we are trying to handle, especially in today's world, where those issues where men do not want to accept that this context requires us to work together. We have to do it, and nobody has chose. Those gender roles, it doesn't work to say a wife does that, husband does that. Whoever is close to something should just do it. And that's something people are not adjusting to. So it's one of the things that are causing that. Another thing that is causing that, decline in love, it would seem like it's not a serious thing, but people don't have time for each other because of work, because of a lot of commitments. Sometimes people just go out there and They don't see each other. They just greet each other, and the other one goes to work, and the other one comes back. And
But Kumusha, those at home, it's not the same. It's not the same. You know, I also wonder what's going on. Maybe Maichi Dzonga could explain to us, since she is there and she is an observer, what's happening to younger people who are getting married. Yes, what you said is very, very, very poignant, Mfundis, because people have no time for each other. Life is just a rigmarole. Work back home, kids work back home, and there is no time for intimacy with each other in the diaspora. But we'll move to Maichi Dzonga to tell us about what's happening in back home. For instance, because there's none of this running around like we do here. Back work, you know, where we don't even see your partner. What's going on in Zimbabwe? Because the problem is still the same. Marriage is no longer what it was. People get married, they bring in the family, and then 2 years later, if you're lucky, 3 years later, oh no, you know, it's not working. What's happening in Zimbabwe? Maichi Dzonga and Jimmy Makuru are the ones who are advising other people.
Yes, I think
your network is a bit quirky. Yes, I can hear you, but your network is kind of quirky. But anyway, go ahead. Tell us. Let's see how far we can go. Can you speak? Can you say something, Maichi Dzonga? Okay, I'll go to Cecilia. What's happening, Cecilia?
Right.
To me,
because
it's all.
of
Go ahead.
okay, we are now westernized. All these influences from outside are impacting on us. So gone are the days when we were giving values or given values by our grandparents, parents, and us passing them on to our children. So there's a bit of both. You know, people are really very confused. They are no longer westernized or Africanized. More so the Africanism is really just being taken out, because then we are copying things that we don't know about. So when we talk about love, our grandparents' definition of love. Now our children, if the Western, when you are in the diaspora, there's no way you can act like an African man. You have to help your partner. Whereas out here, there are roles for women and roles for men. And, you know, all that is the confusion that we see in our youngsters. And also, I don't
Cecilia, can you come in?
Okay, I think there's a delay, so she comes in and out.
I know.
Yeah, so I think
what's going on? Why are people still going to it when you said 50%, you know, in general, 50% of the marriages end in divorce. And I think there's another 30% of that, people whose marriage are not working, who are in marriages and they do not want to leave for one reason or the other. Like you said, so much pain, so much loss, so much this and that. So in actual fact, it's like 85% of people are in relationships or marriage, so to speak, where it's not working as I don't know. How do you explain it? Why are people still going there?
Well, I think part of it is that as humans, we it's within our DNA to be in relationships, right? So we are wired for relationship, whether it's our relationship with the creator or the relationship with other people. And then we also have this innate desire to love deeply, right? So I think So that's a natural thing that is within us as humans. However, I think where the issue is that we feel that if I am deeply attracted to John, it means I should marry him. And so I think that's
And
one
keep
of
him. And marry him and keep him.
marry him and keep him. Then the other piece that I see as an issue too is that people get into marriage for different reasons. Some people want the companionship, others want the safety, others want the comfort of having the money or paying someone helping them pay the bills or the help parenting or those other things. The third piece that I think is really why people where I feel it's a problem is because in my background, when I started in Zimbabwe, I actually joined the sisters for some time. And my time in the convent, at the Dominican convent, those of you who are from Zimbabwe, that whole time that I spent with the sisters was a time of trial to see, is this the life that I would want to? I think Reverend talked about pre-counseling. I think people do not take the time that they need, number one, to get to know the other person. Secondly, to understand what is this that we are getting into. So, and then they end up just, realizing, oh, this is not it. And then we have also not respected marriage. We just think it's like going to Walmart, buy a dress, and if I don't like it, I go return it, maybe find another one. So that's how I see people doing it. In terms of not valuing the marriage that originally it was. I've spoken to different cultures. For example, Indians do arranged marriages. And when I was doing my practicum as a student lawyer, and found out, at least those that I spoke to here in Canada, that their marriages last longer, but a lot of it is because of the shame that it would take if you divorced. And I spoke to some of the men. They told me upfront that I do have a girlfriend of mine on the side that I like because this woman I was given. So I keep her because of society. So when you talk about 30% that are in the marriage for different reasons, so that's one of the reasons. Some people don't want the shame, the guilt, the whatever that goes with it, but the marriages died long time ago. Others say, oh, I do it for the children, like we say in Shona. So different reasons why people stay in marriages, but I also find that there is stigma that's around people who are single. So if you are single as a woman, you are looked at as a threat by those who are in marriages. I no doubt she wants to take our husbands, or she has failed, or she's lacking something, or in our culture, even people saying, this was people don't. I have friends who have taken a vow to be single for the rest of their life to save God that way. So yeah, so I think that where I've been lucky to be exposed to religious pluralism as early as my 20s when I was at the University of Zimbabwe, and thinking about how we could do things different as humans. And I think that it's an institution that needs to be relooked into to say, what was God's original plan on this, and what's working now, what's not working? In as much the same way as I challenge my church, the Catholic Church, to say, why do we think only men should be priests in that church? So we need to be revisiting some of the institutions, given how much our world has changed, and it continues to change at such speeds. What worked in 2024 is not going to work in 2025 already. So that's what I would say.
Thank you, Seb. You just hit the point, because in my initial introduction, we talked about love, marriage, and divorce. Is this institution, is this that sanctity of marriage? Or do you remember me saying, do we need to change the model? But I spoke to another friend of mine before last week about this, just wanting to hear people's voices on it. And he said, no, we don't need to change the model, because the model will always be the same. It's just that we have to rethink how we're going to manage marriages. And I said, well, what does that mean? Because to rethink, or to yeah, it's rethinking. How are we going to look at marriages? Are we going to say people get married and they can live separately and still be married? Or are we going to say, because people do outgrow each other, you know, like you said about people who are from a culture where marriages are arranged. You get married and then people outgrow each other. You don't find the person attractive, and really you can't be forced to, because you are expected by marriage to stay with your person until death do us part. If it's no longer working, if you don't find the person attractive, or it doesn't support what your needs are, it really sounds unfair. I'm not saying that's how it should, but I'm just presenting it as a point that it can be quite difficult to stay under such circumstances, right? Reverend, what do you have? Sis Maggie, I would like for you to come later, because your internet is going in and out, because this conversation is really getting juicier and juicier. And really, while I'm at it, I might as well tell people, usually we do 30 minutes, today we'll do 45 minutes, and there'll be a part 2 to this thing. But again, back to Reverend, what Cecilia has said about we question what we have, or we relook at what we have, and see what can be there, what needs to be done. Do you think there is need to come up with, I don't know, look at a different model of getting married? Because this one doesn't seem to be flowing quite well with everybody.
I think that marriage, really, you hit it on the by the nail, Cecilia, when you mention all those issues surrounding arranged marriages and stuff. Nowadays, I, as a minister, I have made a deliberate effort to try and sensitize people on the importance of maintaining the sanctity of marriage. But what that means is that we have a model, and in the New Testament, I know that there is a place where the Pharisees went to Jesus and asked him, are we allowed to divorce? And Moses said, if I don't want my wife, I can just give a token and to show that I no longer love her, gopuro, you know. and Jesus was very, very, philosophical in pointing out and asking, what does the Bible say, or what do the scriptures say about that? And then they mentioned Moses giving them permission, to divorce if you want, because of certain issues that have happened. And Jesus said, Moses allowed you to do that because of the hardness of your hearts. And so what that means, many people interpret that to mean divorce is not possible. But I have another perspective to that saying, because I think Jesus is simply pointing out to them that in the beginning, marriage was like this. But because of the hardness of heart, people are now divorcing. And what that means is Jesus has given us a leeway for human, brokenness. So what that then means is, when there is a broken relationship, when it's not working, even if it is arranged and it's not working, as a church, we don't force people to just stay together. There are times when it's not working, and we try to help them realize and see where they are getting it wrong, pointing out issues that we think need to be resolved. But there will come a time when it's difficult now to reconcile people. So I think that's when we talk about irreconcilable differences. Those ones are there. And when we have those things happening, we cannot demonize the institution. That's my view. The institution itself is still good, and people can still walk in there and do well in there. And people can walk in there and it cannot work. But we cannot say, once you are there, no getting out. As a church, we don't say that. We want people to be aware of the consequences of abusive relationships. We want people to understand the consequences of living together using the model of love that God had to instill in the people, because Paul himself, even in the New Testament, mentions and defines love. And I think that was the best definition of love, that if people can follow that, it will be a very good thing to do. In 1 Corinthians 13, he mentions love as being kind, love as being patient. Love is not envious or boastful. You know, there are lots of things that, you know, Paul mentioned there. It's not self-seeking. You know, those things, when people understand that when you are in a relationship with somebody that you did not grow up with, there are chances that you will have conflict. And conflict is inevitable. And when it's inevitable, it's up to us now as the church to help build that. And if it's not working, we can help people walk out of it as well.
Thank you, Reverend. This is very powerful, and I appreciate you being a modern day Fundis, because really nothing is written in stone. We want to be able to look at things differently, and just by you saying that, you know, some people who could be quite shy and say, Fundis, that's not it. You explained it in its entirety, what love means. And you know, when you're starting to think, how shall I love this person? There's a problem there. It's something that should come naturally. When you're holding a baby, for instance, you, even if it's not your baby, you want to kiss it, you want to touch it, you want to massage it, and it should come naturally. But when it's a process, when it's a work, it's work, then there's a problem. Like I said, our program usually is 30 minutes. We are already on 41 minutes right now. I'm going to ask Maichi Dzonga to say just a little bit, throw in why when you kind of drifted off, I had asked what's going on, where is it going wrong back home there in Zimbabwe? People getting married, we're going to this marora, we're going to these weddings, and before you even know, no, they are no longer together. What happened? It's just not working. You could work on it. Let's talk about it. It's not happening. I'm sure you've been through those kind of things and talking to younger people, nieces, family members, church members, or whatever. What do you think is going on? What's killing it so fast? Let me put it that way. Oh. Well, network again. I'm going to ask Cecilia to wind up. I'm going to have a part 2 of this. Maybe next week we can do a part 2 and we'll reframe it. Now we kind of looked at the bigger picture of marriage, love, marriage, and divorce. We will bring it because, I mean, you know, we just scrape the top of it. We need to break it down. Yeah, we need to break it down. Can you just give us your last few comments on this, and then Fundis can, and Sismagi can as well if she can, and then we can wind up today's program and then get back next week.
Yeah, no, thank
One
you.
word.
Thank you. And it's a really important topic, Auntie. I think, like I said, it can make or break people. And I do agree with Mfundisi that it's a sacred institution. I would, or in the next segment, maybe what I would talk about is, let's think about it as this, you know, my recommendation is that people slow down, take the time they need to learn. Like I said, I spent 8 years of my time in the convent. I did not take till death vows like we do in marriage, because you start as a candidate, you go to the next step, you know, you assess it, and then you go to the next step and become in the novitiate. You spend 2 years of intensive training, and then you take the next step and become a junior sister. Before you commit finally, you have to be sure that this is what you feel God is calling you to, and the community around you should be on the same page. I think marriage should take similar steps. My closing thoughts for today is that I encourage people to think of themselves in this relationship, right? And ask themselves what's important for them. What is it that they want? And be free, because a lot of us are afraid of judgment from the society. So it's more about you, less about what people think about.
Thanks, Cecilia. Sis Maggie, do you have anything to say? Just so we wind up, as I said, we're having problem with your network. You keep dropping out, but if you can say just a few sentences or your thoughts to wind up this conversation, and then we'll do a part 2. Unmute. You're muted. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, what I think is that we as Africans, all our keep on harping on them what love is all about and what we're told by our elders. And, like we pass on that tradition. We know that with modernization, the children, like I have said, they've got another aspect.
Well, I'm having problems, Mrs. Maggie's
We are
network
actually
is-
found wanting, not giving them enough information. So we'll do that addition, pass it on to our youngsters, and make sure that they live by our standards. Someone mentioned Indians and other people like Chinese. They keep to their own traditions and they pass it on generation by generation. So we also have an obligation to do just that to our children. And, not that it should come from the schools or the churches or whatever, but everybody has got an obligation to make sure that we impart our
Thanks, Sis
values.
Maggie. Thank you
to
so
our
much for those words,
children.
words of wisdom. Mfundisi, last minute before I wind up.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
That's what
I think we need to, as my parting words,
I would say
I
for
will-
now.
okay.
Is she still talking? Okay, she's now. Yeah,
Just me
one last sentence. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, I think we need to give enough time. My focus has also been pastoral care for survivors of gender-based violence. So I really believe that is a ministry that we can take up, and everybody, like Mama Chizonga has said, has an obligation to get rid of the stigma that surrounds single people or people who are divorced. We have an obligation to give people a second chance because the God that we worship is a God of mercy and he gives people another chance in life. So I think that's something we need to work on as well in this contemporary world.
Thank you so much. And for all those who have been following this has been some conversation, all right? I know everybody has their thoughts on marriage, love, marriage, and divorce, but it's a big package, and it will take a while to really thoroughly unpack it. As I said, I'm going to have a part 2 to this. Probably next week we have a 2 weeks in a row. We'll be showing these conversations on marriage, divorce, love, marriage, and divorce. And again, we would like to have another one and another program on single parenting, because the stigma associated with single parenting is huge. It is absolutely huge. But we need to unpack that and look at that piece as well and talk about it, because it's something that's in our communities, and how are we dealing with it? But as for today, I'd like to thank you so much. Mfundisi, my friend, my niece Cecilia, and my guru, my sister Margaret Chizonga. Thank you so much for your perspective on this. It's very much welcome. Appreciate it very much. So to everybody, we hope you subscribe, like, and share this program with other people. We want to increase as many people as you can on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, Inspired Voices with Sangwazi. For today, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.